Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the OSR Tabletop with DM Bloodworth. And I have the great pleasure of having David Guyll from Awful Good Games. And we're going to talk a little bit about Dungeons and Delvers, which I believe is his primary. That's your big project, correct, David?
Yeah.
All right, and some of his future, his future things that he's working on, and just in general, we'll talk a little bit about the OSR, and I will throw a couple of questions at him that I kind of have in the can kind of questions, but then I will also take the subscribers and viewers questions, as we're going forward. So once again, there's the banner there. So welcome to David. Thank you, David, for coming on the show.
Well, good to be here. 2 years in the making.
Yeah, it's 2 years in the making. Yeah, so the first time that I spoke to David was oh my gosh, it was at least 2 years ago. So it was certainly pre-COVID, and I think it was on Skype, and that was the only thing that we could manage to get working at the time, or because I was not fully set up like this with with my channel and with these streamings and everything like that. It was very primitive in comparison to what we have now, and we were trying to set something up back then, and it just didn't come to pass, and now finally we managed to get everything to work and to get them on here. So once again, thank you, David, and I will switch over to comments so I can gauge some of the comments as people come in, and I will also double check. On here and make sure that we are live, and it does say that we are live. Only potentially one person in at the moment. So yep, we're good. We're live, and I see that we have one viewer watching. The rest will come in. So it's a Saturday night. This is the first time that I'm running one of these on a Saturday night, and so it's a feeling out process. But we're not going to get bogged down on that. So I'm going to start off by talking. Let's talk a little bit about how you were introduced to the tabletop RPG hobby.
When I was a kid in elementary school, I'd heard about D&D. I think the first time I was in the Magic the Gathering, and I think in one of the magazines they had mentioned it, and there was an interview with Tony Dieterlizzi doing whatever the Planescape card game was, and I somehow got into that, and then at one point my mom just got me. It came in a black box. It was like the easy to master D&D game. I think I had Racist Class and went to like level 3 or 5 or something, and that's where I started, but very quickly after that went into second edition. So I skipped over first edition and primarily played second edition. And so I say that's actually where I really started, because the black box thing, I don't remember doing a whole lot with that at first. I had friends that played second edition, and so that was the primary, like, okay, now I'm really playing the game, and then got in the Rifts at some point too. But second edition is really the big start.
Right. I think the black box, which I don't have actually, I think the black box came out in '92. I want to guess it was around then, maybe 93 or so. But yeah, that was a nice looking box. It's one of those oblong, I believe. I think it runs longer, width-wise.
That's what I got recently. Well, okay, I say recently, it was like probably 2-3 years ago. I got one for nostalgia's sake, but I remember it being a higher box, and it had miniatures in it. It had, just for the characters, it had the little standees, but I remember it had the miniatures. What I got off eBay didn't have that, so I feel like they made 2 different versions of it, but it did have Zanzer Tem's Dungeon. It had that orange rule book that I distinctly remember. Yeah, that's kind of what I was, when I did the black book thing, that's kind of what I was using as a inspiration.
Yeah, that might have been a reprint or, just a
Yeah, maybe.
re-release or something along those lines. Yeah. It's sometimes it's interesting to buy things on eBay, which I get a lot of my stuff from eBay, and
Yeah, same here.
you do have to be careful, once in a while, and there'll be things that you have to look to see, well, who's the actual publisher, because a lot of times, um, the WotC reprints on from drive-through will appear on eBay,
Oh, I haven't had
at
that. I haven't
at
run
the
into that yet.
older price. Yeah, you gotta double check and make sure, well, who was the publisher, at the time. Because and they can't lie about that. If they lie about that, then you can get them on the eBay side, and you'll get your money back and such.
They can
But
kind of
yeah,
hide
it
that
just
in the details.
yeah, you have to really go down and look and see who the publisher was. If you see TSR, you're pretty good. If you see something newer than that, then you'll know at least, oh, let me check to see how much this is on drive through, and then you can come back to it. So all right, so yeah, so your introduction was certainly later than mine.
Yeah.
So you started with second edition, and I started with either the Holmes edition or Moldvay. So I was 70, 77, 78. Never quite sure which one. I know which box set I got for the first time. And much like yourself, I had repurchased the original box set that I had, and I paid a lot for it at the time. I paid like $100 for it, but I was just
Wow.
happy to have it. And I was like, great, I got this thing. And it's,
Yeah, it's
it came with a
nostalgia thing.
dice. It came with a crayon. I was like, oh, you can't go wrong with this. It came with everything, and I was really happy with it. So, yeah, I could definitely feel that nostalgia thing of trying to just get a hold of the first one that you played. I eventually got the Holmes edition as well, even though I didn't own that. At the time, I was like, I think this is the one that I started playing. And the reason why I say that is because my DM let me play a lizard man, and the Holmes edition is the one that lets you play any monster that was in it. So
Was
I'm
that the one
pretty
that
sure.
I've heard people that to counter the criticism of like, oh, everyone's playing like tieflings or whatever. There was one where Gary said like a player played a Baylor or something. Was that
Yeah,
the
that's probably. Well,
okay?
I don't know if Holmes edition had that in there,
Okay.
but you could do anything. That's one of the things that people today, kind of forget, was that Gary really supported you doing what you wanted to do at your own table. Um, for him, it was like, are you having fun at the table? There were only certain essential rules that he never truly identified, but he kind of vaguely mentioned, like the demi-humans having a level cap. And he was more specific about that because he said the reason behind it is that he didn't want people to just always choose them, and
Yeah,
it
because
would leave humans out. Right. So
because
that
humans didn't
was
really get anything besides unlimited advancement. So why would
right.
you play a human then? Because you get some
Yeah.
extra stuff to do.
So that was one of the things he mentioned, and he mentioned alignment because he really didn't believe that you could truly capture heroic fantasy if your players were playing evil characters. So he really wanted to encourage the heroic fantasy. And even though he said, I'm not telling you can't play evil characters, but that's not a sustainable campaign. You know, um, that's good for a one shots or a convention game or something like that.
I
But
will say we did try to do an evil game one time, and it was one session, and it was really just silly, stupid. It was more campy. That we were like kind of just
yeah.
jerks. We weren't really evil. Just kind of,
Hmm.
oh, there's a commoner. I'll kill him and take his stuff. Oh, he's got three. So it was dumb.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
agree. I don't think you could fully sustain that for a very long time.
Yeah,
First,
yeah. I've tried it. I've played evil characters before,
I think
and
everyone's done that. Just to like, what is it
yeah,
going to be like? And then it's like, well, it's kind of.
it's difficult if you play stupidly, You really need to have a lot of side conversations with the DM, and you need to arrange things with the DM that the other players may or may not know. Um, and then you have to. What really helped was I played a chaotic evil cleric, and what really helped was there was a paladin in the group, and the DM told the paladin that he was not allowed to use his no alignment on other PCs because that would be a violation of his code. He's supposed to accept, the party group or whatever. So he never did it. And, I was always on the slide trying to do things that were, chaotic evil because I had to do that because I was a cleric. So I had to perform, various things for my deity, which I hid it was a deity. It was a god of deceit. So I could wear the wrong, I could wear the wrong holy symbol, because it's deception,
investments and stuff.
Yeah. And so it was always, played it out for quite a while, and then, the paladin eventually discovered it, and he just, because I had worked with the party, he just banished me from the party. And I was like, okay, it's like.
So did the player not know this from the start? Like he was just told, don't do that, and so okay.
Yeah,
so he didn't have to So he found out not in a like if players know something's up, but they're like you can't. This guy's a doppelganger, but you got to pretend you don't know that. Players, I found that they'll try to do stuff to try to get that. Like they know you're a doppelganger, they want to figure it out, but they can't just say it, so they got to worm around it to try to. Remember that time we did this and that, trying to quiz him on history or something like that, just so they could try to get that out. Like they want to metagame the solution. So if he didn't know, that's
he
found it out on his own.
He eventually found out on his own. He kind of figured it out after a while, and he was like, "Oh, wait a second," it's like, and I think at that point the DM let him, do the no alignment, and he had me dead to rights, and he was like, so. But anyway, we had that didn't last very long actually, because it was that difficult to actually play, and we spent more time just trying to do things on the side and such. So, but it was fun. It was certainly fun. So let's get back to Dungeons and Delvers. So we were, we were just having a discussion prior to coming on air, and I have Dungeons and Delvers, the Dice Pool edition, which is actually the kids edition, which I just discovered. So why don't you talk a little bit about this edition, David?
That one was primarily made to help teach our oldest daughter, only daughter at the time, teach a better math skill. So it was a way to, use all the dice, and whenever you do something, you're going to hit someone, you roll a dice for your might or your agility, and you roll another dice for your melee skill. Like D4 is the worst, and then it goes up to I think a D12. But it's otherwise a roll 2 dice, beat a DC. Damage is you'll have 3 or 4 wounds. So a one-handed weapon is 1 damage, two-handed is 2 damage, and certain things can tack onto that. There's also armor dice, so if you get hit, your armor breaks. Then there's a repair kit to get your armor points back. But we try to do it in a way where a young child could grasp it, using cards and tokens to figure that out. And that was just mostly a kind of an experiment using. If you've ever played Super Dungeon Explorer, you could also look it up. That's kind of where we got the chibi. That's actually where we got the chibi style from. And also, we used to actually play that game with the kids, but we wanted to do more of a long-term, a campaign-style game, just using the figures from that game. And that's it was just an experiment. People and some people were like, "Oh, that sounds really cool. You should publish that." And this was back when G+ was around, and so we were like, "Okay, I guess we can do that." And then we just kind of did that. It was kind of there we go, and then we're done. Because even my daughter started to get more into the D20 side of games. That's what we play with them nowadays, is the quote-unquote adult version of Dungeons and Delvers, where it uses the D20 and more complex math. So, yeah, it was
because when I first looked through it, and yes, the art style is more cartoony than most others that I've seen. But the art style itself, though, still has like I'll kind of hold it up here. I mean, it's still, I wouldn't say it's edgy or but it still has an adult appeal to it, and that's just from the quality of the art, so the line work, the coloration, it still has it's made for kids, I guess, but without being childish, if that makes any sense. Or I mean, look how cool that guy. Well, let's see if I can do this right. I mean, it's really cool stuff. I really, really dig the art. So
I'm
now
glad
I'll
you
have to
like
take a
it,
look at the
because
D20.
in
Yeah.
retrospect, I was like, hey, I could have done it better. I should have done that better. Chibi art style is not like my thing, and so I was trying to like learn how to do it while we were doing it, and that made things take
Right.
longer. And that was just because, again, we were using the Super Dungeon Explorer minis, which are chibi characters, so the art would kind of match the figures, and that's really why we did that. I if we're trying to do that, I don't think I would have used that specific art style, or at least I wouldn't have tried to. But I'm glad you
Let's
like it.
see. Yeah, no, I really like to take a look at different types of OSR games out there, and it doesn't matter to me if they're written for children or written for adults, or if they're 3 pages long, or like tiny little booklets. I recently picked up one that was like you use the coin, um, like a coin toss kind of mechanic to it, and it was like lighthouses on the edge of. I still have to do a video for it. Lighthouses on the edge of the universe. I'm pretty sure that's what it is, and it is the most unique game that I've ever read. I don't even know if it's quite a game, but just the mechanics behind it, and your coin tossing, and you're reading to see what happens, and
And that's
it's
just on the
just
coin toss.
so interesting. Yeah, it's like it's just so interesting, based on just what it is, and it's literally it's a tiny book, and it's only about maybe 10 pages long, and it just really unique. You don't see those kinds of innovative things coming out of your big
I've watched
publishers,
it.
because they're not willing to take a risk, of that kind of
Well,
thing, because it's
they could just rehash what they've already done. Like,
yeah,
hey, you guys remember Ravenloft, or you don't remember Ravenloft, but
mhm,
we already have Ravenloft, so here's Ravenloft again.
yeah,
We're gonna make everyone gay or whatever, and then here it is, just buy it, whatever,
mhm,
and that's yeah.
yeah. So let me segue right along with that. So was the OSR something that felt right from the beginning you were going to lean more into, as far as your game design is concerned?
Um, not no. So I played second edition. That was my big thing. Then third edition came out. We did that. Then fourth edition came out. We started playing that. Then fifth edition was in the playtesting phase, and I was into that, and it's like, oh, it's all simpler now. And I was kind of like thinking I want to go back to older editions, and I thought that's what they were doing. And I followed the playtest and actually did some play testing up until there, because they were doing some neat stuff with the sorcerer and warlock class. And then all of a sudden they were like, "Ah, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to roll back to like everyone's pseudo Vancian now." And then I was like, "Okay, I don't care anymore." It's because it's like, okay, they're just gonna do third edition with some fourth edition mechanics that have been renamed, bolted onto it. I don't care anymore. I already played that. And so then I started playing
Right.
Dungeon World, and that's
Okay.
what we really started doing is Dungeon World. But Dungeon World's mechanics, they're very clunky. It's very clunky to run the game. It's very clunky to design things for it, especially if you're going to write an adventure for it. The way they do the move structure, anything you're doing has to be like kind of shoehorned into a move, and so you have to do like okay, if you get a 10 or higher on the roll, you get what you want. 7 to 9, that's more murky, and then a miss is like whatever the GM wants to do. And that whole design, when I thought about like if I was going to run this with the D20 thing, like second edition, third edition, or whatever, that would be so much easier to design stuff for those games.
Right.
So after a point in Dungeon World, I started going, man, I want to play like just D20 again. I just want to go back to like, okay, you roll to hit the monster, you hit it, you don't hit it. I don't got to go, okay, well, you hit it, but X, Y, and Z might happen, or you miss, and then all this other stuff can happen. And I thought, well, the last edition I played was 4th edition. Let's just start there. And then we played that, and it's like, okay, well, I hate all the hit points. Let's reduce the hit points. I hate all the like everyone's starting with like 4 or 5, 6 moves or whatever. Let's just go back to like, and I think that's where you could say OSR stuff kind of fed into that, where it's like, well, man, 2nd edition, 3rd edition, I didn't need all these like special attacks for the fighter, and I don't need all these at-will magics for the wizard. So I kind of started rolling back. So it's more like I started with 4th edition, filed it down to like the bare bones foundation, and then just started going like, well, what do I like about 3rd and 2nd edition? I'll start doing that instead. And so kind of just replaced it and built it up. So it's I would say I didn't start with OSR stuff, but that to me feels the most natural and enjoyable style experience. So I kind of went back to my roots, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So
it has elements then of 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. That's fair to say.
No, it's mostly elements of 2nd and 3rd. There's
2nd
really
and 3rd? Okay.
I've heard people describe it as a kind of a modified rules cyclopedia or some kind of 2.5 edition thing, but they're really I'm thinking, and I can't think of any 4th edition mechanics in it at all anymore.
Okay. All right. No, that's fine. I know. I just actually read a tweet today where they were kind of comparing the OSR version of each of the editions of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons and the Modern. All right, and they didn't have one. They didn't have one for 4th or 5th edition. They said 3rd is obviously Pathfinder, and a lot of times Pathfinder, at least the first Pathfinder, was called 3.75. You know, 2nd edition has For Gold and Glory, and 1st edition is either Osric. Although they didn't mention Osric, they mentioned another one. The Rules Cyclopedia is really D&D Beckme. 1982 through 84ish. Those box sets there, and there's Blue Holmes for the Holmes edition. Mold Vase is any of the BX, the modern BX is, they go back to OD&D, quite a bit. Castles and Crusades was considered 1st edition, AD&D 1st edition as well. So yeah, there's plenty of retro clones out there for the various, the various editions. And that was the conjecture, was what would the OSR answer to 5th edition be? And I don't think there's an answer for that, or maybe even not even a desire for that, because I think most people in the OSR are looking back at, 2nd edition or earlier, rather than looking to take something from 5th edition and move forward with it, or even laterally with it.
Yeah, I don't. I'm not familiar with all the OSR. Like you said, Beckme. I know of it. I know of OD&D, of Holmes. I think I actually bought a PDF of Holmes or Mold. It was like a red PDF. Had a red cover on it.
Yeah, that would be Moldvay then.
And I think I looked through that because I was trying to figure out, well, okay, so in the black box that I grew up with, or I started with, what kind of rules did they have in there? Like, what kind of content did they give you to start the game with? What did Moldvay do? What I was looking at, like, what is the bare minimum you need to like kind of play a game? And that's where the first iteration of Delvers, the black book, came from. Is like, okay, well, they include this, that, and that. I should have that stuff in there too, like how to randomly do this certain thing. So you're not like kind of lost going, well, what can I? If I want to go sleep in an inn, what does that cost? I want to buy a horse, what does that cost? Right. But I couldn't, like what would 4th edition's like clone or OSR thing be? I don't even know what you would do with that.
Right.
You just, like what I did, file it down to almost nothing and then build it back up from scratch again.
Right. Let me take a look at some of the comments here. So we'll pop up this one here. So hello, 8 Mo Blue 8
Mobius.
Mobius.
Mobius
Oh,
8.
okay, Mobius. Oh, that's an I. All right. Hard to see. I got to change these bubble things.
Okay.
Hello. Now this here, I think Mirador is one of the players in my my Advanced Dungeons and Dragons First Edition campaign. So he's our human cleric of Farlagan. We're playing in Greyhawk, and he's talking about the thieves. As it is, thieves can be any race in First Edition, and it's hard to justify playing a human thief when all of the other classes have advantages and not a limit. Yeah, and that's why the level limits were put in place there. So that was the the main thing. I think the highest that anyone can go, that was a demi-human, where halfling thieves could go up to 12 or maybe 14, somewhere in there.
For some reason, 14
I'd have to
sounds
double.
right.
Yeah, I think it's 14. And they were capped at like 9 for fighter.
Yeah.
So and then later on, some of the modifications, I'd have to double check the Unearthed Arcana kind of changed some of those things as well, and double check that.
A lot of people didn't like Unearthed Arcana.
There were elements of it, like back in the day, I played a thief acrobat, so I liked that, so that was my main character, and he went thief acrobat. But we heavily modified the game when we were playing. My DM, allowed for upper class, higher levels for demi-humans than what the book said. And we did a lot of house rules and
I imagine
things
most
like
people
that.
did.
I mean, like I said, we were teenagers, so it's not like we were, going to be, very, very strict with, oh, this rule says this rule, oh, you can't do. We never really did it. We never played it that way. It was whatever made it fun.
Well, I don't think anyone really rigidly played by the rules 100%. People invent house rules. If something didn't make any sense, if there's a corner case, but also second edition, I had a DM that let wizards wear armor. His whole thing was for every AC point it gives you, that is it was like, I think, a 5 or 10% chance that your spells failed. So you could wear padded armor. And, okay, well, your spells might fail, but that's up to you. Or if you don't,
right?
Because I mean, if you want to wear armor, why can't wizards wear armor? Like, well, it interferes with spells. Well, so what? There's a wizard's like, I don't have any spells up for the day. Throw some plate armor on me so I don't get my butt kicked. Like, you can't wear the armor. Why not?
Yeah.
The book just said you can't.
Yeah. I mess around a lot with trying to figure out how to make it a little bit easier, I guess, for low level magic users. So I created an intelligence modifier that because I always thought, if you have a 17 intelligence for a magic user, you should be able to memorize more spells than if you only had the bare minimum. So
clerics got the extra spells for wisdom,
right? So I was like, I'm not saying they can cast more spells, but they can memorize more spells, and just at the lower levels. So a 16 gave them 1 extra memorization of a first level spell. A 17 allowed them to memorize up to 2 spells up to second level. And an 18 intelligence gave them up to 3 spells all the way up to third level. So they could have, with an 18 intelligence, they can memorize 1 extra first level, 1 extra second level, 1 extra third level. It just gave them a little bit more flexibility and a better bonus than extra languages. It was a better bonus than that. So and again, just a little bit extra flexibility in what spells they can start to carry, because otherwise your first and second level thieves magic users would always take magic missile and sleep. For the next 3 levels, that's the only spells they're taking is those 2. They never had a reason to take read magic or some other kind of a cool thing to have, but not combat oriented.
So you got to do what one player that I used to game with a long time ago did. what if he ever asks the DM, if I die, what happens? Can I make a new character at the current level, a level lower? DM would say, one of the DMs said, same level, why not? And he's like, cool. So he rolled up a thief, got sped up to like level 5, let himself die, and said, hey, I want to roll up a wizard now. So he's boom, level 5 wizard. So he just did it that way. Like, I'm gonna play because Thief had the lowest XP amount, and also
Right.
you got okay, second edition bonus XP for getting treasure. So he just and then I died. I guess can I roll up a wizard?
Yeah.
Sure. Sweet. Fireball time. That's all he wanted to do was cast fireball in haste. So
that's a smart play. To do that. So let's move on. Let's talk about some other. What's your next big project that you have coming up?
Doing a second edition of the D20 Delvers game because Delvers was supposed to do what I wish D&D did from the start, but then I thought I found some things that I liked better, like having armor just as damage resistance. No AC bonus. And it's funny because I was thinking of this, and I wrote a blog post about this, and then in the pundit forum, people were asking, like, how can you do defense and DR and OSR? And it's like, wait, I found the solution for it, where every class gets a class-based defense bonus. If you're playing a fighter and you have no armor on, you're not going to get hit half the time, basically. You're going to get your defense, so you're good at dodging stuff, and then armor is just purely takes out your damage, and some attacks can ignore armor, like a ghost just goes through armor. Some attacks, like with daggers, if they get close enough, they can just they can slip between the armor a little bit. They get armor penetration. So that's a thing. I found a way to get hit dice back into the game, because currently, if you're like playing a barbarian, you get wound points equal to 8 plus your con. Vitality points is 4, and then you get 4 and 3 every level. It's just a static number, but I found a way to make it so you can now roll, and then it all works out. Weapon ranges. So if you got your fist, that's a range of 0, daggers 1, short swords 2. And this is just the way where, like, you don't want to bring a dagger to a sword fight, because the guy with the sword, he's going to attack you first. A lot of little tweaks like that. But beyond that, I got some settings. Campaign settings, because that's what I really wanted to do, adventures and campaign settings, but I wanted to get my kind of ideal system in place to do that first. And so probably the first one is going to be Ashes After Ragnarok, which is a post-apocalyptic Norse thing where it's after Ragnarok, but it's during Fimbulwinter. So you got to play like mostly humans and dwarves, maybe some elves that are, you got to explore the world that's been devastated by the gods and the world serpent fighting.
That sounds cool. And
then I got a Cowboys and Cthulhu thing, which is going to be more of a Weird West thing. And then a kind of, not really a setting thing, but more like if you want to do like an Oriental Adventures thing, here's races and classes just for that kind of purpose. So all the Asian stuff's going to be in one book, so you could just go, hey, I want to do this thing. This book has everything we need. You don't got to like reference, like I'm taking the monk class out of the core book because it's just kind of an odd man out right now. Hey, here's all the pseudo-European stuff and a monk.
Actually, Gary Gygax said the same thing. I mean, when Oriental Adventures came out, he was like, use that one. It's better than this other one, and that was something that, we kind of dabbled with a little bit, but never fully got into it. Never crazy about monks, in general.
You should see the monk that I came up with. It's I'm really, I never liked because I played second edition, didn't have a monk class in there as core. Third edition did, and everyone hated it. And I don't know what the fifth edition, I don't know what people think about the fifth edition monk, but I think we got a very unique class design set up for our monk.
Cool.
I'm happy with it, but again, it's just, don't want to go like, hey, here's all this European stuff, and then a monk randomly in there, and then like in our monster manual, here's a bunch of pseudo European monsters and like one Japanese oni, just for like it just seems strange.
Right.
We always had read magic.
Yeah. This is just a throwback. This was the most recent comment. Yeah, so he was talking like what I was saying as far as we always treated read magic as an ability rather than a spell because no one would take it then. Yeah, so that's a good way to work around as well. Make certain things. I thought read magic should be more like a cantrip than a first level spell, and so you wouldn't have to worry because you could get up to 4 cantrips for for one spell slot. And I certainly played magic users that way, where they would just come out with a number of 4 useful cantrips, rather than just one spell, especially if you didn't start off with a magic missile or a sleep spell, which we didn't always start off with those. So sometimes you just had to please give me something something combat wise that I can be more effective in combat.
My second edition DM, he had something set up to he was like he randomly rolled for an offensive spell, a defensive spell, then a utility spell. So you'd always have something to fight with. What did read magic do? That's not that wasn't detecting magic. What was the purpose?
No,
of
read magic was so that you could read magic scrolls, or you could just read magical script. So it really is. It should be an ability score or an ability like Ducato says that, and he actually followed up with. It definitely makes a better cantrip than a first level spell. Yeah, I think it should be your introductory first spell that you can cast, or
it should be. I think
that you learn. Yeah,
I think it should be an ability because how does your wizard learn these spells if you can't read spells in the first place?
Exactly right. Yeah, I was actually contemplating putting together an OSR version of like a School of Magic, and that was one of the things that I was like, well, if you're entering into a School of Magic, you're going to start as a 0 level character, and because you're a student, you're not haven't graduated yet, and that was one of the things that I was thinking about was like
you should do it. You should do it, but you should also do it or like not just School of Magic, like what would it be like if your character had to apprentice with some wizard in a tower in the middle of nowhere? Like what would you have to do? So do it where a wizard in a tower, or maybe you have to work with this or that, or like a scaling thing. So eventually, a player could, okay, there's a magic college,
right,
or something lesser than that. I think that'd be a much better thing than anything WotC could ever do. But that would be great because you could even just use it like you don't have to use it as a book where the player has to go through adventures, but it could be a way to generate a background for a wizard character.
Right,
your character learned this from here, and it was like this, and this is what you learned. Something like that. I think that would be great.
Yeah, I was going to have them run through kind of like a 2-year kind of like not in real time, but like a 2-year regimented of these are the skills and the background skills that you're learning. These are your non-weapon proficiencies. These are the different schools of magic. So when you're year 2, last semester you'll pick a school of magic that you're going to focus on. You're going to have to be a scribe to a certain extent, and you're going to have to. And if you fail any place along the way, you always had the herbalist, the alchemist, and scribe to fall back on. It's like, well, you washed out, so you're just an NPC class. You didn't, so almost act like a funnel, in a sense that no, the character's not dead, but the character is now just an NPC, didn't qualify to become a first level magic user, and so kind of make that like the almost a campaign, like a mini campaign for 0 level magic user or a magic user aspiring characters.
Yeah, so your character could wash out, but it's not as bad as I heard in Traveler you could die during character generation. At least this way you're just a drop out.
Yeah. So this is just and it's not as severe as Dungeon Crawl Classics, where you make 4 0-level characters, and you see which one survives.
You roll up a whole classroom of wizards and see which one doesn't drop out at the end.
Right.
You could even do it like what was the second edition had? I thought they had
Oh, they do. They have a
solo
book
adventures.
of wizards. Well, they might have solo adventures, yes, but I pulled out my second edition. The book of wizards. Like everything the wizard's
complete
guide.
book of wizards.
Yeah, the complete book of wizards. I just started looking through there, and I was like, wow, there's just so much in this book that you could have created a Strixhaven just based off of that, and had
something better than
just make
Strixhaven.
but I mean, it would have made much more sense if they just used what was already there.
Well, that's which is funny because that's what they've been largely doing. They've just been wrangling it and mutilating the past to go like, hey, buy this. And you'd think with all the people they have, they could come up with something fresh and new, but it's like, no, we're doing it was Ravenloft, and now it's this magic setting thing they're converting.
They'll come out with the Dragonlance thing as well. And then I don't know what they're going to do next. Here's Mirador and Greyhawk first edition book. It has a process for 0-level characters. I think it would be fun to play 0-level characters. There's quite a few games out there where you do not start off at first level. You start off at 0 level, and you have to make your way up to that point. There's other games out there where your characters are never really anything far above average. And so it's like it's ordinary people trying to do extraordinary things. And they seem to be much more, dangerous, but they're also much more fulfilling once you've, wow, I actually survived that,
and that's something else that I liked about, older editions is that, like 4th or 5th edition, you rest, you're fully topped off, so you're really never in danger because Resurrections, it's easy to come by, or it doesn't have any like lasting consequences.
Right.
I will point out that in my D20 Delvers game, there is a whole thing for 0-level characters in the back, and I did an adventure called Escape from the Flesh Catacombs, where you're supposed to play 0-level characters. There's a whole roll-up for that, but it's the adventure is your characters are captured by a Gorgon, an actual Greek mythology Gorgon, petrified, put into this catacomb she did that she basically had built using smashed up people she got. And you awaken in the catacomb because you don't know this at the start of the adventure, but a hero showed up and killed the Gorgon right before he died. So all of her petrified things turned back to flesh. But because she's in the catacombs, they're all animated as undead. So now the players basically have to rip out of like flesh walls and escape her dungeon full of but that's got a 0-level. Where you play 0-level characters, and if you survive, there's things you can find that can kind of influence what class you can become when you're done. But 0-level thing is great because if you can pull it off, it's like you're holy crap! I had like 3 hit points.
Yeah,
anything could have killed me in one hit, but I pulled it off.
Right. Well, and that's like just to make a kind of a weird comparison, but that's how early editions of Call of Cthulhu were. You were just a regular person, just trying to investigate these things, and survival was just surviving. Not only am I still alive, but my character still has any kind of mental capacity left. Afterwards as well. I was like, that's the win condition, right? You survived and you're still sane.
Go crazy.
It's like. You pretty much, won, and you probably retired immediately following,
you're
discovering that,
You're too crazy to do it again, or you're smart enough to go, I don't want to do that again.
Yeah. You pack up and you leave, and you live to the other side of the planet if you can. And that's how a lot of the H.P. Lovecraft stories actually ran. It's like they never stuck around, and say, oh, let me see what else I can discover. No, they all beat out of town as fast as they could if they survived mentally.
I've read a lot of that stuff, and I don't like really. I never played Call of Cthulhu, but I've seen people do like Lovecraft. They're just crap games using that. Like they hate Lovecraft, but they use his property, and they don't understand how it's supposed to work. So
I
Tentacle
hear,
monsters.
I'm looking at this this comment here now. So I don't think that WotC will ever touch Dark Sun.
It's got slavery.
Yeah, it has slavery in it. It has cannibal halflings. It has.
But could you imagine what they would do to Dark Sun if they're like, we need to push Dark Sun out. We got to get rid of slavery. Let's just say it doesn't exist and it never did.
Well, actually, Dragonlance has slavery too, right? They're not draconians. I forget what they're called, but they.
Oh my god!
It's very. It just slipped my mind.
Yeah, they're not.
It's almost like draconians. Yeah, it might be draconians. Yeah, they the Gully dwarves were their slaves, so they have slavery in Dragonlance.
Weren't the Gully dwarves? They were really stupid.
Yeah, they were portrayed as being really stupid, which they wouldn't be able to do that either. Yeah,
that would be ableism or whatever.
Yeah, they wouldn't be able to do that either. Let's see. They had Dark Sun in 4th, but no 5th, as far as I know.
The 4th edition one was really shallow. Like you couldn't just go like, oh, I got the Dark Sun books. No, you kind of had to go get the 2nd edition box to really get any kind of meat to it. Mm. I was pretty disappointed in that. I had it, but
yeah. So all of history has slavery. Yes, yeah, and virtually every culture throughout history has had one form of slavery or another. It wasn't even always directed at at other persons that they came into contact with. There were some forms of slavery that were amongst your own.
Yeah, and,
Norse thralls. And they had strict rules behind it. So a year and a day was the time frame to be a thrall, and other European, Western Europeans practiced indentured servitude, which was, essentially a slavery, a form of slavery, limited by time. So after 7 years, you're considered to have paid off whatever debt you were. They had debtors' prisons. They had, so.
Yeah, but that was white people, so it doesn't counter.
Well, yeah, and it was generally, practiced throughout, Western Europe and Northern Europe, and then they really only bring up the chattel slavery and that kind of type of slavery, being born into slavery as an issue, but slavery existed everywhere in the world. And in virtually every single culture, and perpetrated by and against every group that you can point a finger at. So so the fact that they're looking
don't bring your history and facts into this.
Yeah, so the fact that they're looking to kind of water those types of things down and say, well, this doesn't, this is going to exist in our fantasy world. It was like, it's a fantasy world.
Give the players something meaningful to fight against. Like slavery exists. Be the liberators of the slaves. Like that seems like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, it's like I've never seen slavery, portrayed as that's what you're going to be supporting as a player character.
I'd be very curious if there's any players that were like, "Hey, want to be slavers in this heroic fantasy? Let's just go abduct people and
it's
make them. I don't know what you make them do,
but anyway, so back to your D20. So Dungeons and Delvers D20. So what are some of those some of the themes that we would see in right in the rules of the game?
Well, the rule is it's largely it's a D20 core. Roll a D20, add modifier, beat number. Where it differs from, I would say, let's just say like 2nd and 3rd edition for comparison, is that you have a wound point, vitality point split, and that's wound points they're like your meat points. Vitality points are like your fatigue, you're getting knocked around, like minor. And that was just because people they'd say, well, hit points or they're your combat prowess, they're your luck, and then people would say, then why does cure light wounds heal all of them? So I thought, I'll divide them. and then that solves that problem. And also it made it so, like, let's say you're fighting a giant snake. If the snake bites you and he doesn't do wound point damage, you're not he didn't actually get his fangs in you, so you don't have to worry about the poisoning. But if he does wound point damage, well, now you got to resist the venom. Make saves against that. Armor gives a little bit of damage resistance. So if you're wearing full plate, it has DR3. You get hit, shaves a little bit off. You're not fully immune to damage, but it matters. Classes, every kind of class gets a talent thing where you can customize your character, but we did it in a way where you get to control your complexity. If you're playing a fighter, you don't want to think about special maneuvers or whatever, and those are mostly like what you'd see like in Rule Cyclopedia or maybe even second edition, like there's a trip attack thing, you can disarm someone, but those aren't even like you have to say I want to trip the guy. It's they have like a value, like they'll say trip attack 20 or higher. So if you make an attack roll, you get a 20 or higher, you do your damage, and then you get to make the trip attempt for free. So fighter, I know you can try to trip someone, but fighters and other martial classes, they can kind of roll that in if they pick that ability. Mm-hmm. If you don't want to deal with that, it's set up where you can just pick like +1 damage with two-handed weapons, little passive stuff, and just forget about it. And every class has that kind of ability to do that and kind of focus on almost like conceptual trees. Like if you're playing a rogue or thief, you can, focus on stuff to assassinate things, construct traps, be good at be like the party face if you wanted to. None of the classes have a pseudo-Vancian system. I thought of doing a full-on Vancian thing because the Vancian Dynard system, it actually makes sense, but D&D, they do it in a way where it doesn't really make sense, like with the whole spell level, spell slots. The memorization is not a problem. People say that doesn't make that's kind of how it worked in Dying Earth. That's not the issue. It was just spells didn't have levels and different divided spell slots in your wizard brain.
Right.
But we did a different thing where, like, if you play a wizard, you pick a school of magic, and then that's a requirement for other spells. So if you want to use Fireball, you got to take Evoker, then Burning Hands, then Scorching Ray, then you can choose Fireball. So it's supposed to be like your wizard picking a school and then gradually learning new magic stuff as you go.
That are within that school.
Yes. So if you want to be an illusionist, well, you pick the illusionist talent, and then you can pick like animated illusion, which lets you create illusions with a certain size. Animated illusion talent lets you make them move. Then there's ghost sound to give them sound. So
that's cool.
You get to combine these things. And I almost didn't do this system, but a player who played the illusion and enchanter type wizard, he loved it. He's like, I love that I can I just want to make like a still image of like a tree. Now I want it to move now, so I'm going to start tacking on. And the magic system for wizards is you randomly roll dice to determine how much points it uses. So
I see.
So like a level 1 spell, a spell that would be level 1 would be like 1d4, and you get 4 points per level. So you roll that, and so wizard could get, maybe it uses all your points, maybe just one. And then the more effects you tag onto it, the more dice you roll. And the cool thing is that if you use all your willpower points, it then starts using your vitality points. You're becoming exhausted. And then if you don't have any vitality, it uses your wound points. You can actually die casting spells if you I've got basically 10 hit points and 4 vitality. I'm going to roll 5d6. I really hope I don't get, 14 or more, because then I'm gonna fall unconscious, guys. And also if you fall unconscious, the spell don't work anyway. So you can't go like, I'm just going to go really big or whatever. You got to make sure you're still alive for it to work. But some classes like clerics, they use a different mechanic where they're calling on their gods, so their spells don't hurt them. And then bards use like a rhythm thing, which is also points based, but they get their points back really quickly. So there's all the classes, they feel different. They have different spell lists. They have their own constrained things that they can do. And the read magic thing, that's there's a skill that lets you like find scrolls, translate them, learn how to cast them. So you don't have to have read magic to see what it does. You could just try to you puzzle it out on your own. And actually, anyone in the game can even cast spells out of scrolls. And if you have you take the Arcana skill, even a fighter could do it. But a fighter, he's going to take longer to cast the spell, and he doesn't have the willpower points that a wizard has. So if you're a fighter with a fireball scroll, you got to be looking at it the whole time while you're casting it. And the dice goes right over your hit points. In the middle of combat, well, you might get hit, spell won't work. But if you're rolling 5d6, you could knock yourself out. So it's a kind of a ritual thing that, in a lot of fiction, people can kind of cast out of scrolls like without having to be wizards, but it's dangerous. It's more risky. It's time consuming. And then,
I was going to say that sounds really cool. To something different and just adds different elements to I guess Fireball. There seems to be a lot more going into it. A work call. Call her back. No, I'll call her back.
Well, so the game is decidedly D20. If you know how to play second, third, fifth edition, you're not going to be like, well, how does this work? It's just that we tweaked a lot of stuff so it makes more sense from a flavor fiction perspective, and then also like the monsters are different as well in terms of what they look like, what they can do. So it's not like you play this, it's just like playing something else. It's familiar, but I think we put a lot of stuff into it where I feel like it really justifies its existence.
Right.
Which, maybe that wizard drain thing isn't what D&D players necessarily want, or maybe it is, and maybe you want to take that idea and put it in your other game, and then if that's the only thing you want to port out. There's a whole thing for making alchemical potions and different items. So because I don't like how I know this is like a third, fourth, fifth edition thing. Cure Light Wounds potions, they're magic. They shouldn't be like a thing that's bought like a commodity.
Right.
So we kind of just made alchemical types of potions where like you can drink a mending potion. It heals like 1d6 wound points, but it does it very slowly. So it's more of like a thing you drink out of combat to heal yourself up. We don't do the long rest. We have a short and long rest, but it's not like in D&D where if you short rest, you regain 1 vitality point per level, 3 short rests per day. After that point, you're too tired. Wound points, it's 1 per level per day. So you gotta, it takes time to recuperate. So you're not just gonna bounce back to full every day. See, comment popping up.
I'm just popping up this comment because I wanted to ask about Thieves, and that was this was actually going back to when we were talking about slavery and other darker content type of things. But thieving skills, how do thieving skills work in Dungeons and Delvers?
Depends on. There's a thievery skill, but we also have a thing called skill perks. So you get 1 skill point every level, and you can put that into a skill. It caps at +5. But there are also perks you can take. So if you have thievery, you can take like I think what's called like lock scrubbing, so that reduces the time it takes to open a lock. You can specialize in certain specific tasks. So we don't have to have the big skill list. Instead, it's you take thievery, and then you can specialize in picking pockets, opening locks. And the pickpocket thing is, you roll, see if you do it. If you do it, you get the thing. If you don't get to a certain threshold, they get to make a check to notice you that you did something.
Right.
Opening locks. There's a whole section opening locks because I actually looked into how long does it take to pick a lock normally. So it takes time. You can't just like, it's a one action or whatever. And there's a chance that your lock pick will break. So you can't. Some D&D editions you can take 10 or take 20, but if you take 20, that basically means you're going to pick every lock you find. You can't do that because there's a risk of the lock jamming or the pick breaking. So you have to basically roll, and I think it's 1d6 minutes is the time. But disabling traps is a whole section on traps, so they take different amounts of time to deal with them, depending on if it's like a scything trap out of the walls or like a little snare trap, this is so you notice it, just clip it or whatever, walk over it. I guess you have a specific thieving skill application you're curious about.
No, I was just asking, how they might be a little bit different than what we're used to seeing in a D&D style, like where you have the set skills and a percentage, ability. But no, you answered that well. So they kind of take different.
Even for like combat and stuff, they have different. There's a whole thing where like if you get attacked, you can hinder the opponent's roll, which means they roll twice, take the lowest result, and then if they still miss you, you can run a little bit. So it's called like it's the elusive talent where the rogue, they're very hard to pin down. If you play them, if you pick the right talents, they can run around, dash away, hide behind the fighter, like get benefit of cover from those in those situations. You can make them really good at sniping people from a distance. And again, you can always snipe anyone you want, but if you take certain talents, you're much better at doing it. They can cripple opponents that they sneak attack, like they're not just doing bonus damage. They can actually hamstring them, so they're slowed for a while.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
There's a bleeding wound ability where if you hit an enemy with an edge weapon and they bleed, they have to make a saving throw. Otherwise, they start taking damage every round. So you can do a lot of stuff with them. And again, it's set up in a way where if you don't want to be all complicated, you just pick the stuff that's really easy to just, plus 10 speed, fleet foot. I run faster. So you're not going to worry about it anymore.
Right. Yeah, I'm just pulling up some comments here. So they were talking about, how there's a Legion of Myth. Hello, Max. Thanks for popping in. And this is how he does his healing potions.
Oh, that's exactly how it works. One per round.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
But also every alchemical item. So in third edition, Alchemist Fire sucks. It's good at lower levels, but it does like little damage. In this game, every alchemical item has 5 categories. So your 1d6 mending potion, that's good at low level, but you get higher level, you got to get the exceptional ones. You got to get the superlative ones. Those are like 5d6 damage. I think they go up to like 5 per round for those ones. The Alchemist Fire Flask, it's like 1d8 damage, but if you get to the higher level one, it's like 10d something. So you can have guys throwing fireballs, but they're expensive. You can't really buy the higher quality stuff as easily. So you can take the alchemy crafting skill. But we got it set up where like, okay, if the alchemical items, they're useful for a very long period of time. You get higher level, you get more money, you buy the bigger stuff. You get a wizard that can craft them. Something to do with your money.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. And again, it's just adding additional layers to some of the things that we are so familiar with, and a lot of times that's all that's really needed to make something just much more interesting to do. And so that's you don't have to add like a super amount of complexity to a game system. It could still remain fairly simple, but just have a few extra layers to it, and that's the kind of innovation that you're seeing, I think, in the indie games or the OSR games that are coming out now. Is the fact that there are so many different creators out there with all of these different ideas, and it's really finding those those diamonds in the rough, and Dungeons and Delvers is one of those games that when I first looked at it and started picking through it, I was like, I got to speak to this guy, and I just liked what it was doing, how it was different than some of the other stuff that I was seeing, and hearing about this much more advanced game, because I had the kids book. It's like
well, look at the D20 one.
Yeah. I was impressed with this, and I really like this style. So now with the D20 one, I will certainly dig into that, and really looking forward to to running it, because it sounds like it's that next step that I was looking for. So that's something I certainly want to do.
I'm curious to think about the art in the D20 one, because my wife, she colors it, and she was looking through it recently. She's like, man, I did a really good job on this stuff, and she's because her coloring has improved quite a bit. But if you like the art in the kids one, like this is all the art, we did it on our own. Right. It's like this, we're just mom and pop, doing this type of stuff. So I'm just curious what you're going to think about the art in this, because it's a lot more advanced.
Yeah, well, that sounds really good. All right. So it says, I have the PCs roll to save if they drink a potion of herbal heroism or super heroism, or a character becomes addicted, suffers withdrawal. So
That's something to put in for some of the potions. Getting addicted to like minion potions, getting addicted to bigger potions.
So
like
my character in Star Wars Galaxies, I played a smuggler character, and he was addicted to every drug or spice that he could create. They call them spice, and he was addicted to so many of those boosters. And the way those boosters worked was they would boost you up, but if you were low in hit points, you could actually die when you went into withdrawals. So
so you got damage, but then you would lose damage. Like how did that work?
You gained health.
You but gained then it went
health,
away?
but then when you came down from it, you would lose those health points. But if you were lower than let's say you had 6 hit points, and you took a booster and it put you up to 14 hit points, but then you took damage and it brought you down to 2 hit points. If that drug wore off, you'd go below the 0 and you'd die.
You know what I'm saying? I like that idea.
So it was a really cool thing.
I'm gonna make a little note in here. Make a little because I have a vigor potion for vitality point recovery, but you don't lose it. You just get it. But no, it's a great idea. Like kind of a I don't know what you'd call it. I got to think of a name to call it. That's cool. Yeah, that's a good idea. And also, Legion. I like the idea of becoming addicted. I'm gonna make a little sidebar for that now.
All right, so
rhythm magic take longer. So rhythm is it's a bard resource. They get I forget if it's like 2 per level or something, and so you can a lot of bards. Another thing is a lot of bard spells have effectively a ritual option where you can just cast it like charming performance. That one you can cast it for free by taking 30 minutes to basically do a big cast it. You're playing your instrument, you're singing slowly, you're drawing people in. So you can either use your magic version of it where you spend rhythm, you can cast it for free. So bards kind of have that option. That's why they don't get as many points as everyone else does, is because they get a lot of freebies with time. But also when you short rest, you regain all your rhythm points. And the way the short rest mechanic works is first short rest is 10 minutes long, then 30 minutes, then an hour. But after the third short rest, you're basically too tired or beat up to benefit anymore. You need to you just need to take a nap. You gotta you're out for the day. So you can't just short rest forever, and there's no hit dice thing on that. It's just you short rested, 1 vitality point. You're getting out of being exhausted a little bit, and that's it. You're not getting your hit points back that way.
Right. Well, that makes more sense actually. To have it where you're recovering your fatigue level, let's say, rather than your actual physical, body, the meat, as you put it.
Well, barbarians they have a talent where they can regain some wound points every short rest, but again, you only get 3 per day, so they kind of I forget what they called it, but it's because I know the barbarian, they're tough as hell, so I just figured that made sense for them to get a little bit of WP back. James, get in touch with me through if I'm in Facebook or through Edward. I'll show you the bard class that I got just so you can see what it does, and then I'm curious what you think about that.
Cool. Yeah, if anybody has any specific questions about about the game, then you could just throw them in the comments section, or you can you could just put them, send them to me and I will pass them on, or you can go directly to David as well with them. But we'll definitely answer all of your questions through here. So I see this question here. I'm
showing previews to people.
How is his game called? Oh, what is his game called? So this is Dungeons and Delvers. So I'll type it in.
And I stupidly use that name for 2 different games. The one you're looking for, it'll say
is
Dungeons
the
and Delvers
D20?
Core. It'll say core rules. It's got a skeleton. It's kind of hard to explain. It looks like the cover has a skeleton with energy coming out of the head and worlds spinning out of that too. So it's not the chibi version. Although Edward likes the chibi version, so look at that one too.
Yes, I do. Yeah, you can get that one too. But I'm definitely getting the other one. So I just put Dungeons and Delvers core rules with skeleton on it. All right. So hopefully that helps and it's red book, correct?
I call it the red book. That's not the actual.
Yeah.
That's not on the title of it. The cover looks reddish brownish.
Reddish brownish. All right. So just so they know, because there is a black, and this is the updated version of the black, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, so the black book is like that was like the proto alpha 1 to 5 version of it. That's not the one you want. You want or the dice. Okay, again, everyone likes the dice pool one. You can look at that one too. But the one I've been talking about, the rhythm and stuff.
This is the dice pool one. So this is the kids version. All right.
And other one that I'm talking about, that's the D20 one. It won't say black book on it at all. It'll be a fully letter sized book. Not digest sized.
Yeah, I will.
I'll give you a URL for it. That way people can just if they're like, which one is it? That way everyone goes to the right place instead of buying the wrong thing.
That's perfect. Yes. Yeah, you can just link that up, and I will share that. Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, what I'll do is when this video goes when this video gets uploaded, onto YouTube as well, I will put that in the description. So, and all of this can get picked up on Drive Through RPG, correct?
Not the red book. I'm doing that one exclusively for our own site. So it's
okay.
There's a PayPal link. I get an email, and then I just send you the Google Drive link to get it directly. So
okay,
easy to share with your friends if you want to get into it without dropping a whole crap load of money.
Okay, sounds good.
And I just private message you the URL.
Okay, thank you. And so this one I can post on here.
I'll post it wherever.
Yeah,
you can post it on here if you want.
I will post it here. So for those of you, and I'll go into comments, and there we go.
And it shows off some of the art that we did.
All right, and there everybody goes. All right. So type it really fast because I'm going to take it. No, it's up there in the comments. You can hyperlink on it, but make sure you don't get pulled out of here. So I'll leave it up there, and I will post this elsewhere as well so that everyone can take a spot. Yeah. So I noticed that this was you have a blog that you're kind of using as is it like a testing ground or just like a sampling? Your blog.
It's just I write whatever comes to mind. Like I'll post playtest stuff. I'll post reviews. I'll just like I started posting the combat playtest. Like, oh, here's what happened. Right. We tried doing the defense and the damage resistance thing. Here's what it looked like. So people that are curious, does this actually work? And it seems like it actually is. But I wanted people to say like, here's what I did, and here's all the boring math I did, and because I know, some people, they might think you might want to use it for your own game. Like maybe you want to give everyone a class-based defense bonus, but will it work? Do you want to do the play testing? Or maybe, I think, everyone should do it on their own. But if you don't, well, here's what I did, and it seemed to work out. Or maybe what I did, people will go, whoa, hold on a second. There's a problem with what you did. You screwed up on this or that. You didn't think about something else. So it's kind of that. And then also RPG crap going on, like drama and stuff. I'll talk about that sometimes too. But it's kind of like design blog, play testing thing, play report thing, art thing, drama thing. Yeah, the art looks nice. Yes, yeah. I'm happy with the art. Edward, you should go there and scroll to the bottom to see the art.
I'm looking at the art right now. So I just brought it up on my iPad. Yeah, so we're looking at all the
pretty pictures my wife colored.
Yeah, yeah. That insect thing looks cool. Or is it an insect or a? Let's see.
The one at the very bottom is
the Remoraz, yes.
And so this is something we changed. The Remoraz, it's a big ice worm thing that gets really hot.
Right.
And it's supposed to use these fan wings to try to lift itself up. I thought it's a big ice worm thing. It should eat snow and shoot it out like steam. So this one uses steam to lift itself up, and also burns things with it.
Oh, that's cool.
So that was the way we tweaked an existing monster to make it a little different. And also like the owlbear that we did, it's not here, but our owlbear, it can't fly, but what the owlbear does in our game is it climbs up into a tree, looks around, and when it finds something, it has big wings attached that come out of its arms. It'll leap down and glide and just smash into you. So if you're in a forest with owlbears, make sure you're looking around the trees because it's just going to dive bomb you at some point. So just a little tweak, and then there's new things we did, like the Sin of Greed, the Cherub Angel with the 4 faces. Well, you can only see 3 of them really, but
yeah.
So we did some new stuff, and we did some tweaking of old concepts.
Very, very cool. Yeah, now I'm super excited. All right.
Like the new cover is a good upgrade.
Yeah, the new cover. I like the cover. All right, so that's the.
I had a hard time describing it.
Yeah, it's the. Yeah, it looks
got
like
a skull on it.
It looks like one like a leash with little baby ones. It's like a skeleton holding. So the baby skeletons, yeah.
So the idea was it's supposed to be kind of the dungeon master. The world's coming out of the head, and then the pawns of the players. The little, especially little like I got the idea from like like Norse old like chess pieces, and then you can see the kind of grid beneath them. But that was the idea.
Yeah, the new cover especially is a good upgrade. Yes, it really is a cool looking cover. Yeah, so now I'm super excited. All right, even more
to look into the D20 one opposed to the one.
Yeah. But all right, so let's see what else we have here as far as questions. Yes, the art looks great. So these could be obtained directly from your website, which I will post everywhere. So let's see. Let's move on. And so now I also discovered that you've worked on some other people's projects. So how did that come about? So I know because I have Chalt both volumes, and you worked on the second one, correct?
I worked on. I'm pretty sure it's Fuchsia Malaise to a point, and then I've also done some Avengers smaller stuff like various Alpha Blue adventures in the Crimson Dragon Slayer thing.
Right.
And that's just because Venger on social media said, "Hey, anyone want to work with me?" And I know that some people don't like Venger because he says things that they don't agree with, and I don't really care. So I was like, "I'll do it."
Yeah.
So that's literally how it happened. Was he put out a call, and I was like, why not? That's all there was to it.
Yeah. And next one is do you which conventions do you actually go to, or are you planning on going to?
I've only ever been to one convention, and that was 11 years ago. It was something in Portland, and I didn't really enjoy it. I didn't go there it was just kind of just to go there because I'd never been to one, and people wanted me to go to one. So I don't really go to conventions. Also, where I live, there's really no conventions around us. We're thinking of moving though, so if I go to a place where the convention's nearby, then I might just to if anyone I know is going to go there, just to talk or something. I don't know. Maybe if someone was like, "Hey, come to the convention as a guest of some sort or whatever," then I think I've been more likely to do it then. But I got 4 kids, so that doesn't give me a lot of free time.
Right.
That's actually another problem is that we got a 2-year-old and a baby on the way, so not a lot of free time to go. Hey, let's go to let's fly or drive like hours away and then get a hotel for a few days. So
it's much more difficult with 4 young kids. That's without a doubt.
I think someone was going to do an online convention. I could do that because I don't have to go anywhere for that.
Well, yeah. I mean, I did several during but they're more like this. I mean, basically, it's like playing online. So this is kind of the format. You just have 4 or 5 players on the screen with you as you're running through games. So it's not like a true convention kind of feel to it. You're just running, virtual tabletops. Basically, no, I was asking because I know the next convention that I'm really, really hoping that my family vacation doesn't interfere, is I want to go to VentureCon, and that's going to be in July. I believe it's July 22nd, 23rd, 24th, or it's certainly that weekend. And I'm actually driving, so from New York to Madison, Wisconsin for that one. And
Wisconsin
so it's like,
would be a hard place to get to for us.
Yeah, it's a 15-hour drive for me, and for me, it's definitely worth it. If I don't resort to flying, unless flying is super cheap, but if I don't resort to flying, it might be. I don't know. I got to double check it. But then I got to rent a car and do all the other kinds of stuff, and it's like I might as well just spend the 15 hours. I don't know. Who knows? I kind of like driving, but I don't know if I can, handle 15 hours one way, but I might try it. But that's definitely a con that I want to go to. One of my players has already signed up for going there. Obviously, Venture is going to be there running games, and I will probably look to go there to run some games as well. So,
and I hope that really works out, because I feel like we need something beside. We need an alternative to Gen Con. We need something.
Oh yeah,
different.
Yeah. That was something that I mentioned in a tweet back in July. I was talking, and I was responding to this general attack against the OSR, and I says, you know what, we have to reject this stuff. We have to push it away, but not just push it away. We have to push forward the OSR into new players' consciousness and say, no, there's an alternative to this, and it's much more open than what they would have you say. Believe. It is much more innovative. It is, it has fresh ideas, new ideas, and what you're seeing coming out of these big corporate publishers is just a regurgitation of old stuff. I mean, some of their advocates will say, "Oh, the OSR is just a retro clones." I was like, "What do you think 5e is?" You know what I'm saying? What do you, and they're just regurgitating, like you mentioned earlier, Ravenloft. They'll bring back Dragonlance. They'll do, they just keep on. They redid Saltmarsh. They,
even the giant thing, the giant adventure they did. That because they had it against the Giants or something in first edition, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a hill giant thing, and then a frost giant thing, and then they had a name like Steading of the Hill Giant, something of the whatever giant.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, I tried reading that giant adventure. That was terrible. There's the giants show up and they just start throwing bullets and everything to get an item when all they had to do was just show up and take the item and leave. But no, they had to ransack the whole village for no reason. And then literally a flying wizard tower with a giant shows up, and then I don't remember, the players go on there, and then he says, "Where do you want to go?" And if the players, they don't go where they're supposed to go,
mm-hmm.
he just teleports them to one of the predetermined spots anyway. Whoopsie doopsie, I misteleported for no reason. Get off here. Keep the plot going. It was so badly done.
Yeah.
It was astounding that did they even play test this? Did they even because I feel like there's got to be a way to organically get players to do A to B to C.
Mm-hmm.
This was just railroading. We're going to make you go here. You have to go here. And I kind of get the mentality of some of these players that I see on Twitter talking about stuff about you shouldn't do this and you should do that, and everything, gatekeeping's bad or whatever. They're all projecting. They want to gatekeep. They want to.
Right. Oh yeah.
They want to keep everyone else out. And the thing is, when I was a kid, we didn't care who you were. Do you want to play? And then what's really baffling is they don't want women gaming. When I was a teenager, if a girl wanted to play,
absolutely.
yeah, you should.
Yeah.
There was no way we were going to go a girl playing. We don't want that. It's girl playing? Oh, yeah. Come on. It's insane. Yes, RPG game.
Yes. Please actually put the whole thing in there, Max, so that I can post that up there, because that is absolutely the that's the tagline and the hashtag that I have adopted, and I refer to it often, and it by far depicts what I think old school gaming is about, and it's what it's the way that we played, back in the day. We never worried about all of this other stuff. When you sat down at the table, you were there to play a character very different from yourself in a fantasy or a science fiction or just a fictional setting, doing fictional things that you yourself would not be capable of doing. And it's just escapism, pure escapism. And that was the purpose of it. And there we go. So escapism, not representation, entertainment over activism, organic diversity through natural inclusion.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I actually had a gay friend who played with us, and we, it was never a thing. We never, he never brought it up. We never put it in our faces. We never questioned it. I remember when he actually said, like, he messaged me on an instant messenger, and he's like, "Hey, David, I just want you to know that I'm gay." And I was like, "Yeah, I kind of figured that."
Right.
Like, it's the way he behaved. It's like, yeah, we kind of assumed that, but none of us gave a crap. And it was, and when he came out to us, it didn't change anything, because that wasn't the point. It wasn't like, oh, we got a gay friend, now let's talk about it. It's like, no, it's just, okay, whatever, dude, that's fine. We're gonna play. Let's play. That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Race didn't matter. We just wanted you to. Are you here to play a game with us? We're friends. That's what we're doing.
Yeah. My gaming group was so diverse that, and it literally was, we were just friends. And so it was, my first dungeon master was his family was from India, even though he was born in the United States. My other dungeon master was a Jewish kid. We had a Puerto Rican Italian. I'm Italian, German, Irish, Ukrainian. At one point, we had we had a kid from his family was from China. He was born here also, but so a Chinese kid, and that was our group. The one thing that we were unified by was that we were fans of playing role-playing games and other kinds of games too. We played some board games and that kind of thing. We were the nerdy kids.
Yeah,
we were the nerdy kids.
Nerds. And you guys gravitated together, and you did nerdy shit together.
And literally, if a girl wanted to sit at our table, we're like, sure, fine. That would have been great.
You didn't subject her to the secret 30 D&D questions that we all apparently know, or whatever. You didn't test her.
Yeah, it just wouldn't have even occurred to us. Now, we used to play sometimes at the public library, and so there might be 3 or 4 tables of kids playing, and there might have been 25 kids playing. All right, none of them were girls. Girls just weren't into it.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about from 77 to 87, let's say, that 10-year time frame. On Long Island, New York, in the town of Sayville, New York, girls just, we didn't know any girls. Now, we didn't have hobby shops where they were playing in hobby shops. That was not a thing back in the early 80s. You went to the hobby shop to buy the books, and then you went home or you went to the library to play.
Even in the 90s, I don't remember the hobby shop like, oh, just sit down and play. It was, you get there.
Yeah,
they didn't have any open tables. It was like, go there, buy your stuff, buy your Warhammer, whatever, and then get out of the store. I think actually one of the stores they would reserve tables for Warhammer tournaments, and that was it. They didn't even have Magic tournaments. It was like, it's for war. They had their training stuff on it, but that was like at the time that was it. Now it's like, now it's different. But back then. It was,
but hey, you got at least one sale, so that's
oh, cool. Yeah,
awesome. That's a good, awesome. Thank you, James. I'm certainly going to pick up the the red book, the real red book. So I'll definitely get that as
I
well.
did.
So I'm looking
I
forward
gotta
to it.
change that kids game to something different. It's so confusing.
So, well, I've had this for a long time actually, so I'm certainly not, you know, not upset about it at all. I love this game, and now I'll have the other one. So, I,
The right one.
yeah, I actually tried to get my my girls because I have two daughters, and when Stranger Things first came out, I tried to get them to play D&D. I even got the box set, the Stranger Things box set, which was a total missed opportunity by WotC. It just goes to show you how
A
stupid
missed
they are.
opportunity by
Yeah.
WotC? What?
Yeah, I
No,
mean,
no.
that should have been a reprint of the 1983, which is what the kids are playing on the show. So it's like, how do you not? You still own the license of it. You could have easily done that, but they don't want to do anything that would take away from fifth edition, and it's a horrible campaign. Like it makes no sense whatsoever. It's so poorly written. I'm like, I couldn't even run this thing. I certainly wouldn't introduce my girls to it, and they had no interest in it.
So WotC's backsliding because that came out way after the Giant Adventure. I flipped through it
Yeah.
at a game store because I was like, oh, I wonder what this is about. And I flipping through, I was like, I got to the part where the stupid teleport thing, and I was like, okay, I'm done. I feel like I could just go. I want to adventure with giants, and I feel like I could do a better job. I think my daughter could do a better job. If I said, hey, why don't you do a little? She calls the game Monster House. Do a Monster House game where we fight giants, just whatever. And I feel like she would cobble something together better than that. So I'm surprised. I guess I'm and am not surprised that the Stranger Things just was a total bomb.
Yeah, it just wasn't. If they tried to capitalize on it, I don't know.
It was
I don't
the
know
property.
if anybody else would. Yeah,
watch
it was just
show
the
popular,
property.
what's the thing? Buy product, get excited for next product or something like that. That's all it was.
Yeah,
It's
and I don't think Stranger Things attracts kids to D&D. I don't.
I don't
Stranger
either
Things,
because
they're following.
It's a nostalgia trip for adults.
Right, it's a nostalgia trip for the adults, and if they are younger girls watching the show, they like the boys. You know what I'm saying? They're looking at the actors that are in that, and they're hating on the girl actresses in it too. They're like, oh, I can't stand the way that she treated Finn or this, or it's just that's what their draw was. It has nothing to do with D&D. Those actors could have not been playing D&D at all, and it would have made no difference to my daughters. So it's just a weird thing that they would believe that that's the case, and it's just not. It's not. Well,
I think it was just Stranger Things played D&D. Oh, we know what D&D is, and WotC was like, okay, well, we're just gonna put that on a box, and then people will just buy it. And like you said, you couldn't even run the thing. Yeah, that's probably because it probably wasn't proofread, play tested, thought out, and they didn't care because it was just it's a cash grab for people to buy, put it on the shelf, and then do YouTube videos telling you how amazing it is without even probably having tried to run the damn thing. And that's what I get the feeling from watching stuff in general. Is it's just like, okay, we're just gonna put weird races on this. Look, we got a black person on this. Aren't we so woke or whatever? Just buy the thing. We don't even care if you play it or not. Watch Critical Role. Put it on your bookshelf. Give us more money again for like I saw they were doing like dice sets. Like, oh, here's like the official Curse of Strahd dice set. And it's probably like 25, 30, $50 for a dice set.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they're just milking everyone as much as they can until people just stop caring.
Yeah, that whole box set was like $100 or something like that.
Really?
Yeah, just that one collector's edition of the Curse of Strahd was like $100.
Did it come with like a little gold Strahd vampire mini?
I don't know what it came with. I was like, I'm certainly not buying it, but
probably a variant cover.
Yeah,
because they do the variant covers now. Buy 2 books. Buy 2 of the same book. To get the variant, you got to get the variant cover.
I guess they didn't learn from the comic book industry how that is, that was one of the
Oh, yeah.
nails, in the coffin of the comic book industry was the fact for the local comic book shops, because they would get stuck with all that crap, and they were like, they don't make money from it. They can't send them back when they don't sell, and they basically eat the loss. So,
Yeah, I've heard all kinds of really seedy crap about comic stuff.
yeah, yeah,
Ugh.
that's the kind of thing you have to look at, like Ethan Van Sciver's, YouTube channel, or if he's still even on YouTube. It's been a long time since I followed it, but he used to bring up, what is that, Comic Book Pros, I think is his thing. I'm sure somebody.
Comic journal pros or so.
No,
I've listened to a lot of diversity in comics.
yeah, that's. I think that was its old name, right? I think it's changed since then.
Oh
I
yeah,
kind of
it's like you
stopped
boys Zach or
following
something
it.
like that.
Yeah, yeah. I think I stopped. I didn't keep up with it as much because I stopped collecting comics myself a couple years ago.
Yeah,
So it seems
I
like.
watched it for a while and then I kind of it was like I watched, and then kind of just stopped.
Yeah.
Because I don't really most of the comics like, honestly I read more manga than anything else.
Right.
Um, uh, there's a Junji Ito does a lot of horror manga like Uzumaki
Hmm.
and Gyo. That's the more stuff I read. I also read a lot of Hellboy, and then that ended. But I've never been like a really big comic person. Is your boy Zach comic artist pro
Oh.
secrets? Is he
Oh.
okay?
Oh. Comics
Comics
matter
matter
with
with your
your
boy Zach.
voice
Okay,
act. Okay.
okay.
Oh, diversity in comics is your boy. Comics
Is your boy Zach?
artist pro
Cough cough.
secrets is okay. There we go. Comics artist pro secrets is Ethan Van Sciver. All right, and then your boy Zach is the other guy. Diversity in comics. Yeah. Like I said, I stopped collecting comics. I tried to do, to follow, when Conan went back to Marvel, and I tried. I really did try, because I have all the original Conan comic books, Conan the Barbarian comic books, a lot of the Savage Swords, and
I got a
I
big comic
yeah.
Conan where it's black and white, and he meets Red Sonja.
Hmm.
I forget what that one's called, but then I also got some comics. They're trade paperbacks where it's based off the stories. It's like you
Mhm.
get the Frost Giant's daughter or something.
Right, right, right.
I don't know if that maybe that's. I would be curious which ones you have because I'm Conan fan. So that would that's
Yeah.
I don't in modern comics I wouldn't touch 10-foot pole, but
Right.
older stuff they got some
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
I tried, but it was like, it was just a regurgitation of some of the old stuff.
Uh,
They really can't. I mean, none of them are Roy Thomas. I'm sorry. You're just not Roy Thomas. You're not going to write Conan. I think Roy Thomas is probably the best. I know we're going way off track here, but Roy Thomas is probably, after Robert E. Howard, is the next best Conan the Barbarian writer. I think he's the
he
only
knew what he was
one.
doing.
I think he was the only one that truly captured the character well. I don't think anybody else, including novel writers, came close to what he was able to capture. Just in the comics, and I'm talking just the sheer writing of it. You could take all the pictures out of it and just leave the writing, just have what Wright Thomas had, and it was darn close to equal to what Robert E. Howard originally wrote. So,
So it's like they got the right guy that actually cared about it. The new
oh,
people,
absolutely,
if they
yeah,
even read Conan, they don't care.
yeah,
It's like WotC.
yeah,
We're
yeah,
gonna put Conan on the comic, and people will just buy it because it's got Conan on the thing.
right,
WotC. We'll
yeah,
put D&D on it. They'll buy whatever we put out there.
yeah, yeah. I know there's another commentator, another YouTuber, the OGGM, who was actually talking about, it's just a logo. He says Wizards of the Coast owns the D&D logo. They could put the D&D logo, and he was going like, on this bagel, and now this bagel is D&D. This bagel is Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, it was a brilliant take that he had on it, but it really did make the point of, you know, Sure, they own the title of D&D, but that doesn't make it Dungeons and Dragons. It's still a bagel. All right,
really,
it's still a can of soda.
good night, Mirador. Thanks for showing. Thanks for
Yeah, thanks a lot, Mirador. I will see you Monday night for our game, for our AD&D first edition game. So
the logo
Mirador
thing, yes, they can put D&D on a lamp.
Yeah,
They
and they
should put
probably
it.
have. Yeah,
They should put it on estrogen pills. D&D brain estrogen pills. Soy. They should make a D&D soy drink.
They probably do already. That's probably on tap at the water coolers and at Wizards of the Coast. All right. Let's see. Let's see if we get any more questions out of the audience here. We have RPG Gate and such. So yeah, we're coming up on an hour and 40 minutes. So
Okay.
this has been a good stream, and really enjoyed talking to you. Finally got you on.
Yay!
Finally got this thing recording. Going directly live.
Do you ever do get random people on to shoot the shit with,
Well, actually, this was one of my New Year's resolutions, was that every week I want to bring on either an indie creator or an OSR creator. Maybe that's how we'll finish up the last question here. Is how do you see yourself within the different categories of the hobby? Are you an indie creator, or are you an OSR creator, or a combination of both?
Define OSR.
All right, so OSR, we can go with my definition of OSR, which is
Let's keep it
the old school. The old school is going to stay the same, but the R changes. So you have old school Renaissance, which is taking older editions and giving them some kind of a modern twist to it. So a rebirth.
Okay.
Then you have old school Revival, which is playing the oldest edition. So it's more of a DMing player style rather than a publisher, style. And then you have old school role playing, which is just taking any kind of a game system, but running it the way that we used to run them back in the old school era, which would be anything from, mid 70s to, roughly 90. I consider 1990 to be that separation. So once you get to, the latter portion of, I guess, second edition would be there. But certainly third edition moves on from what would be considered old school. So those are my definitions. So if you're not an old school Revival, because that's, like I said, just playing. So do your games have that old school process of running games?
I want to say mostly, because it's
Okay.
a lot of it was so you say third edition moves on. How does third edition move on from the old school process of running things? What does it do that diverges?
I think that I think third edition starts adding in a lot more of the multiple layers of the character sheet and what characters are able to do. It moves more towards the economy of action than just the rules, as they're somewhat written, and then house ruled and all of that stuff. So I think that it's just a much more complex game than what even first edition was. Second edition, I think it really exploded beyond the books. Like when it got to the splat books and everything like that, I think that's when they, that was a divergence from, first edition and earlier as well, is that the splat books just introduced so many different new classes, new races, new, or new sub races, I should say. And Yeah, third edition, which I never played third edition, so I really can't speak so much on whether third edition, how it differed from second. You're probably a better expert on that than I am.
Legion just said skill based, ascendant AC, no race class limitations, feat. So he's right. Like so, the ascendant AC
Yeah.
thing, that to me actually made things a little more. Okay, I don't have a THAC0 to me it is technically less intuitive than ascending AC, but it is not difficult. But it's technically harder, but slightly, very very slightly harder. I mean, I got THAC0 to a point, and I just do the calculation in my head, takes a couple seconds, but I understand how ascending AC is more intuitive. So I would have to say that to me that's still a better thing. No race class limitations. Yeah, that's also true. Any race could be any class. There's no limit, but that's because humans got bonuses finally. So humans actually had bonus feat and bonus skills that they got. So they were, there was a reason to play a human. They didn't have any stat modifiers though, so you didn't have anything good or bad going with them. Feats, feats were kind of annoying. Yeah. So going off of kind of that, I would say that mechanically, it's not. It goes beyond, I would say, old school, because if you play a fighter, you're going to get +1 damage to all weapons. So level 2, you get to pick something to attach to your fighter to do stuff, and that could make you more complicated. That could be a simple modifier of certain things. So it's kind of like that, but their feats, a lot of them weren't very good. For the spells, again, if you're playing a wizard, you can link up different spells together to make them do more stuff. So that was I would say people have said it feels OSR. I'm curious what you think about it. I think that based off your description and what Legion of Myth said, I think it might go beyond the OSR thing. As far as indie, how would you define indie?
Well, indie is just, not so much OSR, but a lot of new ideas and just new systems and such. So it's independent of, your game would not be called a derivative of Dungeons and Dragons.
Ooh, see, I think this rides that line, because I did create a lot of new. The magic systems are different than what you got out of D&D, but from having played, mostly second, third, and then I'll ignore fourth. People don't like to say fourth D&D. I'll say second and third. It's still very much like, again, you feel like you're still playing D&D. You still got your your rations, your torches. You're going to the dungeons or whatever dungeon environment you explore. A lot of the iconic monsters are there, but they've been kind of reimagined in many cases. Like how gnomes are different than D&D, than classic D&D gnomes. The demons are different. The angels are different. Gnolls are. The whole flavor behind gnolls is that gnolls will attack villages, eat most people there, bring some people back, throw them in a pit, and then watch them, result to cannibalism, and whoever lives becomes a new gnoll. That's kind of, they're like almost like a Wendigo type thing there. Yeah. I think it really rides that line. Yes, there are new mechanics and ideas. The wound point vitality split, armor that gives damage reduction, the alchemical stuff, how recovery works. There's a lingering if you get dropped to 0 wound points and you don't die, you run a lingering injury chart. You might have a speed penalty for a while. You might permanently lose a point of intelligence. You got hit too hard in the head. So there's there's also some critical hit tables, which I know DCC had critical tables. So that's I wouldn't know if that's actually a specific thing or not, but I'm curious what you think about it. I feel like it is between the two things. It's kind of right
so, and I kind of said that, there's a, is it a hybrid? So it seems like it's a hybrid. So it's an OSR indie game. It's kind of a little bit of both. And that's awesome.
It was not born of me going, I need to do something different for different sake. It was me going, this thing I don't think makes very much sense. What could I do to make it make more sense and not overcomplicate things? Because I don't want to do that either. And that's, where the wound point thing came from. Well, now no one can say, well, hit points are like combat skill. Well, then how does Cure Light Wounds heal them? No. There's two different pools. So it was all born for me going, I need to make this make sense to me.
Yeah.
And maybe other people will like that too. Was my part of my mantra was maybe other people will like the changes that I've done. It'll make sense to them too, or they can tweak it or something.
Right. So let's see what we say. It sounds like the OSR feel, but not OSR. That's cool. Hell, I consider Forbidden Lands OSR because it brings back the OS feel. And yeah, that's the thing. It's like whether it's Renaissance revival or role playing, the OS is still that old school feel to it.
Yeah, I
So
would say
you
that
can,
to me it feels old school.
yeah. So we, like I said, it was the R part that could change,
Yeah.
depending on what you were actually doing with it. But the old school is the part, and another thing that's kind of old school is there's a grittiness to old school.
This is definitely it's got a lot of
yeah,
grit to it.
yeah. So that's the thing that I think is oftentimes lost is that grittiness feel. So I know Max is of Legion of Myth is going to go crazy, but I'm reading through Giant Lands, and I'm not seeing any grittiness to that game at all. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just it's just striking me as because I was expecting, written by James Ward, kind of like a continuation of Gamma World. It's got to be gritty, and it's just not coming off that way. So let's see what he said. Can't find a way to contact him. It's a blog site. Oh, I'm gonna put it up, James.
Yeah, I don't have contact info. Let me I will I'm going to drop an email address in the private chat, and then you can let them know to contact me directly. If you want to get in touch with me, there it is in the private chat. And also, Legion, you want to get in touch with more creators? If you want to get in touch with me, let me know. I'd be more happy to come on. And not even just talk about, not even to show my stuff, but I mean, like Edward, if you want me on just to just to talk, that's fine too. It doesn't have to be a show stream.
Oh yeah. I will. I'm not going to put that up on the chat here. I will take your email address and I will send it to Max and James. If James, I think we're on Facebook, so I'll send that to you on Messenger as well. So we'll do it that way rather than just blast it here on the, on the chat here.
On grittiness. So in addition to the wound point, the slow recovery on that, also at the end of the day, Adventure Day, when you take a long rest, if you got injured, you roll for an infection. So so alchemical items that cure disease, the cleric's miracle cure disease, healing kits which can also prevent that, those all become very useful to have. So you can't just go like, oh, I got bit by a dire rat. Whatever. Like, no. You might have an infection which can cause bad. It could kill you too. So, we added little things in like that to kind of make it so that you can't just go like, whatever. I rested. I'm fully. I'm healed up. It's like, no. You're going to heal slowly. You're going to get infections. You might get diseases. Which diseases were in first edition, and then they just kind of phased them all out. Like, you can get stabbed, burnt, fall in a spike pit. No biggie apparently.
Yeah. I know Max is still going on about Giant Lands. It's such a bizarre thing. It really is. I'm going to do a video probably tomorrow on it. But yeah.
Well, I'll be watching that because I've heard of Giant Lands. I don't know. Yeah. I didn't know what it's about, what to expect. I think I heard someone talk about how they were doing some like woke stuff in it, and I was like, whatever. I got my own stuff I got to deal with anyway. But I'm curious what you guys.
Initially, and I will cover this. Initially I was like, it's just unnecessary pandering. That it's not like extreme pandering, but it's still like a pandering that I was like, no one's gonna buy the book just because you're saying this. But then when he gets into the masks part, and that I will save for my video, because the mask part is just weird, and bizarre, and I can't make heads or tail. Then I'm reading like further through it, and there's other elements of it. It's like I will reveal this. So there's subdual damage in it,
Okay.
but subdual damage does 100% of the damage. All right, just that it won't kill so normally subdual damage, you're hitting with the flat of your sword, you're only going to do half damage. No, this does full damage, but it's not doing any kind of damage. It's bruising the creature until they fall unconscious or whatever from the bruising. And I'm like, why would you do this? And then on top of that, it has like
damage. If it's 100%, it's like all this. Okay, fine. I'm just going to knock everything out because there's no drawback.
Because there's no purpose in the game for doing lethal damage, but they don't want to take it off the board. But they're basically saying so everyone will be like, there was this metaphysical shop back on Long Island back in the early 80s that we used to go in there once in a while because sometimes they had some role-playing stuff in there, but most of the times it was the wind chimes and the crystals and the incense and the hippie lady, and that whole feel is what I got reading through Giant's Land. I was like, or Giant Lands, I should say. It just struck me as like I feel like I'm in this freaking shop, and I should have candles and crystals and incense and wind chimes all going on around me while I'm wearing this stupid mask and and an aluminum hat. Aluminum paper hat. It's our tinfoil, I should say, tinfoil hat, which it brings up, in the thing. I'm like, when I do the video, you will see it. I will do the walkthrough. I will actually read the passages and cover it. So this is a preview of tomorrow's video of it. But yeah, when you see it, you'll and I will show the book. I will show.
Okay, it sounds
so that you can see it. But
it sounds pretentious.
Bizarre.
It sounds
it's not even pretentious. It's just bizarre. It's like a weird, like, where did you get this idea from? And it's mandatory to wear the mask.
What
at conventions?
Okay. Okay.
So
I want to know, but I also want you to save it.
Yeah.
I want to know. Dave the GM. You love 5th edition till you played BX. I don't know if you have a blog or YouTube channel, but I'd be curious if you could explain. What did you do? What did you play that? Like, why did you like it more? I'd be very interested to know. I mean, I've never actually played 5th edition proper. I played play test parts of it, and then I just stopped. But I'd be curious. Like what you like? Oh, this is a lot better. I could tell you it's like more about older editions than say 4th edition, but I never played 5th edition. See, I never heard of Giant. I just kind of I'm at a point in my life where it's like I don't really buy or look at other RPG stuff because I kind of just make whatever I want, and I kind of feel like I'm dodging a lot of bullets.
Well, like I said, it's you come across some real stinkers. For the most part, you come across these very unique, strange little takes on things. I gotta find that game. Where did I put it? Oh, here it is. So this is the lighthouse at the edge of the universe. All right. So this is that game I was talking about, right? Okay. There's like a little index card that came in it. Maybe it was a Kickstarter. Maybe it was like $10 or $15 or something like that. But you can create this little lighthouse. They tell you how to do a little cardboard cutout thing. It would be great to do with your kids, and you're like flipping a coin and you're reading a passage, and you use a deck of cards. And so like spades, clubs, and such will also tell you some other things, and you're just kind of reading the different passages based on whether you're flipping a coin or pulling a card. And once you've gone through it, then you can restart and you'll end up with, whatever number of different outcomes you could potentially end up with. But it's just the most bizarre thing I've ever come across, and interesting. I mean, it was certainly well worth it. It was part of the Zine Quest. Zine Quest 3, it was a Kickstarter, part of the Zine Quest 3 last year. And just a unique little game. And
So unlike Giant Lands, bizarre in a good way.
Yeah, it was bizarre in a good way because I've just never seen anything quite like it, and probably never will, and that's the kind of uniqueness that you find in the OSR indie scene. Wizards of the Coast or Paizo would never produce this. All right. They would never think of doing this. And they would, even if they did think of it, they'd be like, nah, that'll never sell. Who's going to actually buy that thing? And it's just a missed opportunity. And that's what I think that the big corporations are. They do nothing but miss opportunities of just, introducing, really cool ideas. Whether they sell or not is not, come on, they're multi-billion-dollar companies. They can take a loss in one division, certainly, and they're never going to lose it on any huge amount on producing something like this.
They could also do what some guys do and just run Kickstarter. Like some companies will run Kickstarters, even if they have the money for it, they'll do that, and that's a way to go. We won't lose any money no matter what we do. So
they
could do
and that's
that.
what this was. This was a Kickstarter, and I hope this person did make money because it is a really interesting thing.
Oh, a Legion. I will catch you later.
He has to jump out.
Yeah, he has to jump out. So.
Take it easy, Max. Have a good one. All right, and I think that we're going to wrap this thing up now because now we're a little over 2 hours and 1 minute long. So, and it was really great having you on, Dave. I really appreciate it. I am super stoked about putting in because I always have to get the physical copy in my hand. So as soon as we're done here, I'm ordering that so I can get it. And
so that's just the PDF on the site. If you want the physical book, I will send you the link to that.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. Please send me the physical link so I can get that, and that way I can enjoy it. Well, isn't that the link that's on the site though?
No, that's to a PayPal. Just for the $19 is for it is for a 500 and something page PDF.
Oh, okay. No, I want the book.
Okay. Then hold on.
Yeah. So I will definitely get that from you and pick that one up because that's what I want. And then
if anyone buys the PDF, I can set the price for the physical book, so it's just print at cost. So I think it's like $30 for the book. But if you get the PDF, if you got it and you wanted the physical book, let me know and I'll send you the zeroed out costing. So you're just paying the $30, which is the bare minimum it costs to print it. So I won't make any more money off that, but you won't have to buy anything twice. I don't want anyone to do that. I hate that. So just let me know if you accidentally did it. But otherwise, if you want the physical book, then hold on. I'll give Edward the actual thing.
Yeah, if you can, just write me an email kind of explaining all of that down. So I know how to, put that out to put that out to the people. That way we don't have any confusion and we don't have, I did this now. How do I get that? I just want it all in one thing. But I really appreciate that. Okay, so thanks everyone. Let's see. What would last question of the day. All right, so what would you recommend to introducing kids to D&D? Should I go for 5e or stick to 2e? I'll let you take that first.
Honestly, I would say second edition. The thing is people might go, well, it's more complicated. I don't think so. I grew up on second edition as a kid, and if I could figure it 9 years old, then our kids are 10 to 13. They're playing the D&D game that I did without very many problems. So it might be a little inelegant. It might be a little harder to figure out. But once you figure out, it's like even the THACO thing, that's not hard to figure. Once you figure out, it's so easy to do. And I would just say second edition, that's where all the good stuff is anyway. You're going to have Dark Sun, Planescape spell, all these things you can do without having to worry about converting anything over. Also, you don't have to deal with any of the woke stuff that's in 5th edition.
Right. Yeah, I would like if you're
mechanic-wise, setting-wise.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm done.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was because I'm getting a little text here as well.
Okay.
So, I would if you don't already have 2nd edition, I would say try to get a hold of the first 2 books of, or at least the first book of BX. So D&D BX or BECMI, BECMI, 1983, and get the first book of that. That's a great introduction, probably one of the best introductions to role-playing hobby in general, but D&D more specifically. That's the way I would go as well. All right, so I'm going to have to wrap it up here too.
Oh, sure.
Thank you, David, for coming in. It was a real pleasure, and
thanks for
I
having
look
me.
forward to, digging into your D20 Dungeons and Delvers, and I will certainly share out what information I can as far as how everyone could go and pick up a copy of either the PDF or the print on demand, or both if they're looking to get both, and take a look at your other stuff that's out there as well. So, but once again, thanks a lot. It was 2 years or roughly 2 years in the making to actually get you on.
I think it was worth it.
And to talk about your gaming experience and just looking at the stuff that you've produced as and the new stuff looks great. I mean, I'm so stoked to take a look at that. And everybody that's joined in tonight, thank you for joining in, and you all have a great rest of your weekend. If you're on the East Coast and you're hitting the ice storms tomorrow, be safe out there. And if you're elsewhere, I hope you have good weather and good gaming for the rest of the week. You all have a great day.
Have a good one.
All right. Take care, everyone. And I am going to end the broadcast.